Hello, everybody. I am Archana Sarat, author and screenwriter. Welcome to the fifth edition of Ananke's Festival of Literature. So, Ananke has always been a leading voice that guides conversations on gender equality, intersectional feminism, women's rights, and more. So, keeping up with the spirit of the festival, today I'm joined by these wonderful authors to discuss about storytelling and contemporary feminism. Stories are said to spark revolutions, and all of us hope that our words could be the ones that ignite that match. In fact, a single well told story could be much more powerful than thousands of speeches because a story has the power to make you feel. I write both crime fiction and historical fiction. So, in my novels, so I've written two, and which are crime thrillers, Birds of Prey and Sleeping Dogs. So, in my books, I've tried to explore the themes of uh, patriarchy, domestic violence, structural violence, silence, and complicity. And I also write historical fiction. And this is a book on the tales from the history of mathematics. And here I tried to show the role of women in the world of mathematics, in the development of mathematics, which is predominantly a male-dominated field. And the voices of women and the stories of women over there are definitely silenced to a large extent across the world. So in a world where women's voices have always been historically silenced, storytelling becomes an act of feminism, actually. It becomes a way for us to grab back the narrative. What do you think, Anuja?
I love what you said, Archana, about grabbing back the narrative. I love that because that captures the essence of what all of us are trying to do. I think it's why we do what we do. Because for the longest time, I feel the narrative was controlled by the instruments of patriarchy. And we might say that it's just a story. What's the harm it can do? Why not take it in the right spirit? But we all know that there are certain real world ramifications associated with the stories that have been handed down to us over generations. We say this is our culture, our heritage, our tradition, and these stories, which, aren't kind to the oppressed, to the minorities, tend to be misused and weaponized against these same communities, especially women. There are so many examples throughout mythology about women who've been horribly exploited by this very patriarchal system, and it's high time that we reclaim the stories, because at its heart I think the stories themselves are neutral. It all comes down to interpretation, which is why women's voices need to be amplified. We are the best people to tell our own stories, and we can change the world one story at a time. There's always room for reformation. Even if we love our treasure trove of mythological stories, we can't say it is set in stone. We should stick to the way things have been done all this time. That is kind of problematic, because if you find something that needs fixing, then it's up to you to roll up your sleeves and do it. And that's what I've done. I've tried to highlight women's voices in Indian mythology as well as history. So we have stories. My latest book is called The Wife and Dancing Girl, and it's a revisionist take on the Silappatikaram about what is expected of the wife and the other woman. So I've told it from Kannagi and Madhavi's point of view without villainizing or unnecessarily glorifying one or the other. And another book I wrote was Girl Talk. which is exactly as the title says. It's about creating a safe space for women to express themselves freely. It is a space where feminine desire need not be confined within the boundary of marriage and what is considered socially acceptable behavior. It is about letting it breathe, it's about letting it be acknowledged and not stigmatizing women and their desires, while giving a lot of rope to men, even when their desires are borderline criminal or downright criminal. So, this is what I try to do with my writing, which is, just I'm not making any grand statement here. I'm just letting women's voices be amplified. It's not even my voice, it's the voice of these characters, which speak a lot more loudly than I could ever manage.
Archana, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So that's wonderful, Anuja. And I remember reading somewhere, feminism is no longer allowing women to speak. It is also shutting up and listening to her speak. And I think that's something which you brought out very well with your words. Rachel, would you like to add to the discussion?
I loved what Anuja said about girl talk and even about the other woman and the wife. Uh, it doesn't have to be just courtesans and the wife in royalty. Even today, there's another woman there hidden in the office and in the home. So it's there everywhere, even today. So I liked both the books of yours. So I'm so glad that no one sees our plight or what we go through. So nobody realizes, and that is one of the reason I wrote my book, Limitless. That's my book, Limitless. It's really an autobiography, and I wrote it for two reasons. Because sometimes I say I was born before time. I started skydiving in 1979, which is unheard of, and Bachchan had not even climbed Everest. Neither had women come into the forces. Women came in the forces in 92, 94, which is much. I mean, nearly. If I did mine in 79, so you can do the maths. Where is 91 or 92, and where is 79? So that's where I thought I should. Um, Document everything, because in my sport of skydiving, I covered every unknowingly, because when one door would close, I would try and open another door, or try to find a way for myself. And I was fighting the male gender all the time. So I know what it feels like to fight the male gender. And I was an army officer's wife. And being an army officer's wife, where another army officer will not, or an Air Force officer doesn't treat me equal. I'm a civilian, but I'm not in the forces, but I'm married to someone from the forces. There it was cutthroat. Where the sport is concerned, it's cutthroat, and they didn't want me suddenly this the daredevil thing. That they had portrayed, the skydiving is only for the daredevil, and they are sky gods. And then suddenly this petite-looking girl comes in at the age of 24 and breaks everything. And I didn't do it for that intention. I always wanted to fly. I was keen as a kid to fly like one of the vultures or the kites or the big birds and never come down, just to soar there. That's what was my dream, that I didn't ever want to come down. And I was born and brought up in Calcutta, which is a very different kind of a city, which has got literature, music, dancing. It's a different culture totally. Maybe if I was born and brought up in Delhi or in Bombay, I would have gone to learn flying. So because I was always attached to the air. So God had a plan for me when He created me, and unknowingly I became India's first woman skydiver. So that is how my journey started. And I started to, after I got my A license initially, then that was in 79 itself when I did my first 10 jumps. There also something unusual. You're supposed to do a static line. I'm not going to go into the details, which is something very different than a free fall. I did a free fall. I was the worst student, but then I survived it. So, and I came out to be the only girl who continued. We were three of us. One dropped off of 4 jumps, one completed 10 and didn't continue. But I had this bug in me. I wanted to continue. So I went to do demo jumps, and from demo jumps, I wrote a letter to Rajiv Gandhi. In short, I'll tell you. And I got the scholarship. I went to the US, I studied. I came back and started doing competitions. So then again, that door started shutting. Then I turned out and trained to be a judge. I wanted to be where the action is. I didn't want to be out of it. I didn't want to be becoming a mother and sitting at home. It's not that I didn't take care of my kids. If I was out for a month and a half, I would come back and give them back the 10.5 months, 10 months completely, my full devotion with them. And my mother and my sister was there always to look after them. So they were. It's not that they were alone, or being looked after by a single parent. And from there, that door closed after being a judge. Then I became a delegate, and life continued. Then I did a lot of international events. I've broken a lot of ceilings. So I feel I needed to write it down to give motivation to the younger generation that, nothing is impossible. You have to believe in yourself, and if you believe in yourself, you can break anything and achieve it. But you have to believe in yourself. That is the most important thing. I'm a small town girl. I was born in a very small city called Chitranjan, which where the locomotives were made, and it was a railway colony. Maybe one or two streets, hardly anyone, just the railway family connected with the workshop. And then I came to Calcutta much later in life. So for me, I did everything not to achieve to get a name, but I did it for my own happiness because I went through a broken marriage, and that kept me going. Skydiving kept me going. It was not to prove myself, but it was for my own my own strength that I can face the world. And I lifted my head high and walked. So these are the things that I try and share with girls in colleges and girls in schools, especially children who are passing out in class 12, that you're going to get out into a world from a protected environment of a school, from a walled institution to into a mad world, and you do not know where you're stepping out into. So you have to brace yourself now to face that world. And and no teacher is going to be there. No one is going to be there to hold your hand and walk. So you have to believe in yourself, and you have to walk your dream yourself. And that's what my book is all about. There is times when I have crashed my bones, broken my bones, been in bed for 9 months. But that didn't stop me to skydive. I continued. And even today, I ended my career on the North Pole. I skydived on the North Pole. That's where I ended my career. And today also, I still talk about skydiving, how uh, doing anything adventurous in life can change your personality. It doesn't have to be skydiving. You can do whitewater rafting. You can go for a small trek. You can do just cycling, maybe from Cochin to Trivandrum, with a couple of girls or couple of, mixed team, camping somewhere outside. Do anything where you are out in the open alone, or you have to trust nature and be strong. So you can do anything, and it'll change your personality, because adventure sports teaches you about having plan A and plan B. You always have to have plan B in your life, which is very important for our own lives. We plan something, it doesn't have to be that way. So if you have a plan B, you're happy. Okay, this, not this, but this. So it is a blessing to do adventure sports. It is really beautiful. And today I feel where my children are, my grandchildren are, something is rubbed off to them from me. I thank you for being invited here. And of course, I've met Harshali before, I've met Smita before. So it is wonderful what this Anik does for us and makes us share our journey to other women in the world.
Thank you, Rachel. That your story is really inspirational, and I'm so glad you decided to write it down. You know, Thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Archana.
Harshali, would you like to add to the discussion? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just very thankful and grateful that I'm part of the discussion, because the kind of inspiring stories one gets to hear in such an august panel like this, it's really, it takes you to a different level altogether. And the discussion that you and Anuja and Rachel ji just had, I there's I completely agree with what the different facets of feminism and writing that you're talking about. And certainly, I don't think there is a dearth of powerful women who were change makers. But I think due to the times they lived in, there was significantly less recognition or credit given to them. So the power dynamics were shaped in such a way that women were left holding the short end of the stick, so to say. And so for me, their stories serve as a very ready, it's like a ready reckoner for the women of these times, contemporary times, who can relate to thwarted desires and unsatisfied ambitions. So I find it that I feel it is my duty as a writer to shine a light on their positive qualities. You know, the courage, the survival instinct, and the core emotional strength that they would have needed to withstand the unfairness that was meted out to them, and yet they thrived. So to understand that kind of women, you need to understand that they needed the support of their tribe, to rise holding hands with each other, women supporting women, and to talk of inclusivity, and that help can come from the most unexpected quarters. That, if you go back to the stories and you read them, you realize that actually that is the truth, that they did not expect help coming to them from such quarters, and yet it did. So in today's world, I feel, which is, you look around yourself and you see that it is slowly losing its humanity to a large degree. And so we need more stories that embrace the emotional quotient, the compassion that is intrinsic to all of us. And if even one man, women, whoever reads a story of an undesirable woman in an undesirable situation and corrects their course, or at least is moved, to think about their behavior and the consequences of their entitled life, then I feel my stories, or these stories for that matter, would have served their purpose. And if even one woman at the end of her rope, finds strength through the stories that I write, which are usually stories of valor, of holding on for, another day, then I think as a writer, I would have succeeded. And, that's how I base the protagonists of my stories. And the recent book Anarkali is just my attempt to portray a very self-aware and an unabashedly strong woman who makes choices that sometimes go against what society might consider a heroine. In fact, most of the female protagonists, or the protagonists I create, are usually women who are sort of left to the expected heroine, so to say. And so my anarkali knows that love is a weapon, and knows how to use it efficiently to survive. And I think she has myriad facets that some may find difficult to accept, as with other contemporary women that I have created in the Haveli series. And how they have found the internal strength and the strength of resolve, of grit. I think eventually what succeeds is how dedicated and how much grit you have inside you to keep going against all odds. And that's the kind of women I want to write about. That's what I've written when I wrote Anarkali. That's also how I've written the women protagonists, and in fact all my books. Because as I was just saying, you need women to read something, and probably, or anybody for that matter, to read somebody and say, okay, if maybe there is another way to look at the struggles that I'm going through. So I think essentially that is where I am coming from, that is where I write from, that's the place of origin or genesis for my stories.
Thank you, Arshali. And hearing to you and to Anuja makes me, feel that So if we want to change how the society views women, not only are we going to change the stories, but also the way we tell the stories and choose what we want to remember from those stories. I think that's very important, I guess.
Thank you.
Sunita, would
Thank you.
you, yeah, Sunita, would you please like to add to the discussion?
You know, first of all, I must thank you for inviting me on this panel because I never ever thought that I was writing anything which is remotely connected to feminism. That was my first take when I was asked to, you know, come for this panel. And listening to you is absolutely fascinating because I find that everyone is doing something with a purpose. But my writing, whatever I have written, I did not have a purpose. I did not have a reason like what Anuja is saying or Harshali is saying, and even Rachel is saying that that this is the reason why for telling people something or to show something to a mirror maybe to people, to the readers, or maybe change their lives or do something or the other. For me, it has always been expressing myself. It has always been what I felt was right. For instance, I always felt that men and women are not equal at all. They are different. But for me, feminism meant that they should be treated the same way. Like, when you have children, you treat them the same way. So for me, like men, women are God's children, they should be treated the same way. For me, there was not anything specific as feminism. Honestly, it never occurred to me that I'm doing anything even remotely related to that. But then looking back at my body of work, and I've written primarily, mostly on mythology, not primarily, and I realized that whatever I have written, I have spoken about women in a way which is how it's written in mythology. And Hinduism has always been good to women. It has always considered men and women equal. Anuja, I'm sure, would agree. You know, Manusmriti says that, Rigved says, all of them, all are, Vedas, all the scriptures treat women equally in terms of giving opportunities as far as, studies is concerned or anything else. So it was always there. What happened? As Anuja said, interpretations, as the stories flowed down, interpretations by various people added different colors and different tones, and then things like caste and class and so many other things started entering it. And maybe that's why there came this need to have feminist literature where certain things are kind of pointed out. But for me, it has always been something which I have seen in mythology, and I've been very happy about it, and I believe in it, and I practice it, and I write about it. But one book, since everyone is talking about books, which I realized once I was invited for this, is definitely will fit the bill, and which is my, one of my latest books, which is called The Illusion of Illusions, and this is the story of Buddha's wife, Yashodhara. Now, this is something again I never wrote because I wanted to, write about Yashodhara's plight. It was something that I managed to, while I was working on Buddhism, following Buddha's path and so on, I discovered that there was very little information about Yashodhara. But whatever little I could get, I discovered that she also got enlightened around about the same time as Buddha did. And that too, staying at home within the confines of palace and with a son to look after, a single mother, and so on. And that made me think that, look, she did exactly the same thing like what her husband did, and he had to leave everything to do something which he achieved sitting. So that was something fascinating for me. So I did some more research and created a historical fiction out of it. But again, the motive was not, to teach anybody a lesson or show anything to anyone. And here I'll say I would agree with Harshali that whatever little I discovered in history about Yashodhara, she was helped by the community. You know, there would be women who would sit together and discuss their issues, and that's how women who felt wronged or who had personal issues, family issues, would get help because they would kind of probably see that I'm not alone in this. There are other people, and then sharing of stories would happen. So there was this kind of a sangha that happened. So this is something which is again which people are doing now, writing contemporary stories and so on, but which has been happening since forever. So I mean, when I see the title as, contemporary feminism, I actually do not understand it. So I would love it if somebody, would shed light on what is contemporary feminism. But yes, I do understand that storytelling plays a huge role in feminism, because that's the only way we can reach people, through the stories, by giving voice to people who are voiceless, whose voices cannot be heard for whatever reasons. So yes, storytelling is a powerful tool indeed. But I would still like to understand, what is contemporary feminism?
Anyone? Anuja, would you like to go?
Yeah, so I agree with Sunita. I don't and Harshali, and I loved listening to the skydiving story. I'm too terrified. And now I have this inspiration to try that. So getting back to our topic about first to address what Sunita said, like I said, I don't think mythology and our Vedic lore, Puranic lore is to blame for the evils inflicted
Exactly.
on minorities over the years, because as I mentioned, at its heart, it's all neutral. And yes, Hinduism does treat Shiva and
Yes.
Shakti as equals. They say
Yes.
Shiva is Shava, a corpse without the animating energy of Shakti. So it's same but different, like Sunita put it beautifully. But we talked about interpretation already, and the demands of the current age, contemporary feminism. What is the point of that? So to illustrate, I would say that for the longest time, this material was in the hands of a very select group of people. We can just say that not everyone had access to this lore. Not everyone had the bandwidth to wade through the obscure Sanskrit to understand the philosophical uh, intense scholarly courses that were out there. It would take a lifetime of learning to do that. So she mentioned Yashodhara, who sat at home. Sunita said she sat at home and achieved what the Buddha did. Same thing, but different paths taken. So over here also it's the same. Since common men cannot access this treasure trove of accumulated wisdom, which has been planted in this cultural soil, and every generation we harvest it and we take what is necessary for that age. That is what some people do not understand. That's where the manipulation happens, because it's convenient for some people to do
Convenience. Yes.
done in a former age. So I'll just tell a small story from the Ramayana. It's about a sage called Ugratapas who was disabled, but it did not at all detract from his sexual desire. So he insisted that his wife carry him on her shoulder to visit a prostitute every day, and he would kick her if she's moving too slowly. This chaste woman named Sheelavati, if he's in a hurry, he'll kick her and she'll place him down and she'll press his feet. And then she'll pick him up and take him again. And a passing sage saw this and he was disgusted. He felt this man was too lecherous and he was cursed. He said, "You will pass when the sun rises because you're not worthy to inhabit this world." And Sheelavati defended her husband. And she said, "No, if I've been a virtuous woman, then the sun shall not rise tomorrow. My husband should live." So I'm just saying, whether we will bend over backwards to justify feminine desire in any age. Although mythology does have stories about women who've had unconventional unions, which Harshali also talked about.
Yes.
And you have Draupadi with her 5 husbands. You have both the Taras, the Tara
Yeah.
who had with Chandra, you have Tara, who was the wife of Vali, as well as Sugriva. So mythology is full of practical stories which has common sense insights
Right.
which can really help people. And this is the whole when Harshali or I we are talking about contemporary feminism when it comes to writing. We are not doing the whole male bashing thing here, as far as I know. We are just talking about using the stories in a way that can do more good than harm, because the stories do have power. They have a certain potency. When you go out there and you say Sita was pure, and the flames did not hurt her. And then you shove ordinary women and force them to perform sati or johar. We can't say it's ancient history, because even today, if you read the news, when they talk about dowry harassment, there's always a story about a woman who was, burnt
Honor
because
killing, including honor killing.
suspected her of infidelity, or because she wasn't able to prove her virtue. We have this Sita story again, where purity is at stake, or she didn't, the dowry wasn't coughed up. A virtuous woman would fulfill all her husband's desires. So this is the problematic area we're tackling, and patriarchy cuts both ways. Men and women are affected by it, because too much pressure is placed on men also. You should be the breadwinner, you should pay all the bills, otherwise you're not man enough. All of mythology is about male performance issues. It's about all these men who are pissed off because they can't bring forth a hair. So why have these unreasonable expectations from men and women? These are the things we question, which we examine, which we bring out in the open through our story, so that we can talk about it. Of course, talking about it is not enough in itself, but the stories itself, they exist. Puranic lore, all these stories filtered
Yes,
down
they
to us,
do.
so that we can understand what is contained in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, in a very simple form, in a way that is easily accessible to the layman. It's once more we're planting seeds and hoping that some sense sprouts in all those heads. That's what we are attempting here. I hope I addressed the whole contemporary feminism thing. I just meant that our needs change with every age, and we need to address it without being stuck in some idealized version of the past.
Right,
No,
I
no,
agree
you did.
completely. And also, I think sometimes it's not right to use the contemporary parameters to judge what happened in the past. You know?
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. So I read this book by Swami Vivekananda, which was, a part of his speech and all. And where he advises women not to eat in front of men. So he says it's distasteful to see a woman eating. Now, for us, it feels very bad to hear that. He's like, what is this? How could he have said such a thing? But then I think, considering what is happening in today's time, what, I would say, what standards we are having or what thoughts we have now, with that to judge what he said so long ago may not be right. Times change. So I think contemporary feminism gives some way for us to understand the past without our judgments, but also understand what is needed in today's world. I
I
hope
think
Um,
it's,
that's
yeah,
answered.
I
yeah,
think
I'd
it's
like to just add
also
one thing. Can I add just one thing? I
Yes,
think
please.
it's what I understand is it's not about judging the past. It's about interpreting it in a way that it's kind of shows people that this is what it is. They are supposed to be treated equally. So because it's all a game of interpretation, you know, and that's because if men were interpreting it, they would judge it because of their patriarchal attitude. That's how uh, this has happened, whatever has happened. But it's not, I think, not for us to judge, but for us to interpret in a way which is useful. This is what I understand. You know? Because there have been all kinds of women in mythology also. I mean, it depends on how you interpret Draupadi or how you interpret Sita. You can show Sita as a person who suffered. At the same time, you can say that no, she had, she was a strong-willed person. She, exerted a choice. She decided to let the earth swallow her, and she didn't want to go back to Ram because he questioned her. So it's the way we write. This is how we, and if we are strong ourselves, we tend to write stories in a way where with the women that we're writing about would be strong. It kind of reflects. This is how what I feel, that all the authors whosoever I have met or spoken to, they are strong, and hence strong women's oriented stories are coming out from them, because they understand the strength of women. That is what I think, as writers, we should be doing. Understanding the strength and kind of simplifying it for people to understand that yes, it can be done, it's doable, we can be the same. That's very important. It should not be something which is unachievable. No? That's what I understand.
Can I share something?
Let me just add a little bit here before Rachel ji takes it up. I think contemporary feminism is primarily shining a light on what the circumstances were in the past, and maybe kind of putting it out all out in the open, that this is what happened. Now it is on you to make that choice according to the boundaries that you want to set for yourself, and rest assured, your choices matter, your voice matters, your agency matters. If you choose to take a certain path or a particular path, uh, be sure that you have to face consequences of whichever path you take. I think feminism, primarily what Sunita ji was also saying, is about um, choices, about equality, about the fact that you are sitting at the table and you are being given the same opportunities which probably were
Yes.
not being given to a certain sect of people, or a certain sector of people at a given point of time. So I think shining a light on all stories, whatever they might be, is like, things to do, things not to do. So you have the you have the whole buffet or the gamut of uh, stuff that you can do, or you should do, or you shouldn't do. uh, so there will be a story which is warning you that if you are letting someone walk all over you, that is not commendable. You don't have to do that, because it is being told to you through internalized misogyny, or for whatever reason, because at
Yes.
one point of time women were drawing their power from the male, because that is how society, or the pyramid of the society, was set up. That's how the foundation was set up. And hence women were drawing power from the man, and hence the competition, hence the continuous urge to be closest to the power center. Now that women are financially independent, more and more women are going into the workforce, they are more educated, those things have shifted. And yet we still feel that when you read those matrimonial ads, etc., you still are looking at ads with, say, oh, a fair girl who is pious and those kind of things, right? So these are the things that I think through our stories we can question that at one point of time, when a woman did not have that agency to say that, or demand that I will not give dowry, or I will not live with the man who raises his hand to me, or I will not live with the man who doesn't talk to me properly, or doesn't respect me or my family, and treats me like as if I'm the bandhua mazdoor. uh, you know that is where you need to draw a boundary and say, okay, this doesn't work for me, and is there another choice I can make? And so go into a relationship, a situationship, or whatever ship, with your eyes open. And I think feminism is opening more doors. It's putting those buffet dishes on the table for you to look at in the form of stories, and you can choose to pick whatever you like from any given story. However, with every action there is a reaction, so there is always an addendum to feminist stories. If you see, more often than not, if you just scratch the surface, there is always an layer behind the words the author has written, wherein they are warning that be careful of your choices, because you will have to answer to those choices. I think that's what feminism is for me: the ability to make your choice without worrying about what is the right thing to do. If it's right for you, it's right. It's like that.
Yes.
Rachel ji
I
wanted to
agree.
add
Yes.
something.
I agree with
That's the
everything
essence.
y'all. I agree with everything y'all say, which is so true. When we go to the mythology, when we go to the olden times, thousands of years back, when the Vedas were written or any scripture was written, and like it was very interesting what Smita brought about Buddha's wife. Yeah, nobody thinks about her. We just said, oh, she stayed back to bring the children, and she was all the child, and she was all alone. That is how much we know about her. But it was nice to hear that she also had
Yes.
evolved as a person, and she found her thing. But Today, I am staying in a very small town, in a very small village, really, where my daughter has built a resort because she wanted to make this place for people who wants total peace, no sound, and you can come and write, and you can just hear the birds, and that's all. See sunrise, sunset, and you have a place to just be quiet, like that kind of a place. It is off Cochin about an hour plus, and the ocean is very close, so you can hear the roaring of the ocean and things like that. It's a beautiful place. But when I look at people here and I look at their ways and look at the way, and yeah, I have a boy from Bengal who's working with us, and we all sit and eat meals together at times. And when we, because I'm just alone here, and they are the other two people in the house, the girl who lives here and this boy. So when I hear their thinking thought, it's so difficult to know that even today, more than 60% of our thinking is still in the villages, are way down than where we are. We might be the cream of the 20% who are seeing this, and we can understand it because we are educated and we've seen life, we've got a big exposure, we have a cross section. But what about them? Like even today, uh, like there are a lot of things. This boy, he's just young, 22 from Bengal. He's saying, no, that is not my work. That's I will never do it. That's my wife's job. That is my, they still have that kind of mentality in the villages even today. So I feel we should have a lot of writers also bringing up of a Sunita Williams, or or anyone who's achieved or who's broken the thing and got out. You know, it doesn't have to be that she struggled. Like I was telling him of the two stories I know in Haryana, where this girl, of course, Amir Khan made the movie about her being the wrestler. You know who I'm talking about. Dangal, I think it was. And also, that's a true story. I know of a story of a girl who was the eldest, and her father suddenly died somewhere in Lucknow and Varanasi. And she shaved off her hair. She wore men's clothes, boys' clothes, and she used to light the fire. And she had to break the head. She had to break the skull to feed her mother and her younger brothers and sisters. These kind of stories should come out more of what people are doing here, or here, to bring out the people from the lower society higher, because they will not be able to understand they will not be able to understand. They can come to our level much later in life, I feel, that after living here. It's only when we go down to the grassroots that we see what life here is and what life we live in Delhi. So that's what I would like to encourage more people like Harshali and all to also start writing with your other books, a book like that, a small booklet, and translate it into the local language, translate it in all regional language, that it gets to them to read, and that they will know that I can break out of my house, I can get out, I don't have to be beaten up every day, I don't have to be forced to have sex every night, whether I like it or not. You know,
Great. I'll
things like
just
that.
like to add something to what you said. So, just a different point of view. It's not that people who are rich or who are in a better surrounding or in a happier marriage or in the cities for that matter, who have a very um I wouldn't say equality. It just means not beating your wife, or not forcing her to have a relationship with you. So
In
these are, I
the
think,
Archana,
these are
in the
also part of it. Like, just what I did, like for example in my book, um the protagonist, the woman, the mother, is actually in a very loving marriage. Her husband adores her. He listens to every word she says. But she lives in this beautiful gilded golden cage where she's not allowed to do anything she wants. And here he will take care of her. He would do anything for her. And her every wish is a command. He wants to fulfill, he wants to buy a house for her, he wants to do everything he can for her. But when he buys a house for her, he doesn't want to ask her opinion on where she wants to live, what kind of a house she wants to live, or anything. It's going to be his wish where she lives. No, but he's getting a house for her. So even when, so I wanted to give a voice to those women, in fact, who are, in fact, they are stuck in those situations where when they go and tell somebody, when, like in my case, the protagonist, she goes and tells her own mother, he got a house and he didn't even ask my opinion about, I'm buying a house. He just takes me there and says, I bought this house for you. How is this right? How is this fair? This is where I'm supposed to live, right? And she says, see that lady, she's getting beaten up by her husband every day. And here your husband buys a house for you and you crib for that. I think that's also a very important narrative to talk about,
Yeah.
where there are so many women, I feel, around us who are stuck in these seemingly beautiful, marriages, and very loving and affectionate marriages, where there's actually nothing like,
Nothing. Yeah.
nothing wrong from outside. And even when they tell you about things happening to them, you don't even really know, mostly they are dismissed as rich women's problems, maybe in most situations. But I think those are also very important voices, I feel.
I agree with you fully, Archana. I say that, when people comment on someone's divorce, my answer to them is that you do not know what happened in that bedroom. You
Correct.
are not aware of the truth. So you have no right to say who's right and who's wrong. You are not there in their personal situation, so you have no right to say it. So whether it is, I mean, in the poor society, or whether it is, in the rich, it are helped cities, but it's there. And somewhere, it's not only in India, I would say it's everywhere, that
Yeah, that's true.
for it's just taken for granted that women have to, take it down, like, they are not, they are invisible.
There
No,
are other
I mean,
issues also. Class and caste issues are also there. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not just being a woman.
yeah,
essentially, I
The
feel women
there's
are
so many layers.
expected to
yeah,
make themselves smaller to fit into a system, so an ecosystem. And
Right.
I think stories that kind of tell them that you don't need to scrape your parts off, or you don't need to shortchange yourself to fit into the mold that has been created for you. I think that is why more and more women voices are now coming out more than they were ever before. More women want to write their stories, and these are all real stories from whichever section they are coming from. And I
yeah,
think that's something to be applauded, that's something to be
yeah, yeah,
encouraged.
yeah,
That, whichever, from wherever the stories are coming from, the
yeah, yeah,
struggles are very real, whether they're
yeah,
from a a woman from a very affluent family, or from a woman who's suffering from caste-based violence or sexual violence, or even regional violence for that matter, wherein some of the things that we take so much for granted may not be available. Those resources are not available. So access to resources is also not available. So those stories, which sometimes I feel are marginalized, should also come out more than what you actually see them outside, because they're sort of not marketable or whatever. Those are other
There's
That's another conversation altogether. Yeah.
work,
Yeah, yeah.
the workplace issues also.
Yeah,
I
exactly,
remember
exactly.
when I was heading a publishing house. I was a young CEO, just for 28, 29. The entire staff of 200 people of my company went on strike, went down strike. They didn't want me, they didn't want a young woman to be on top of them. So it happens everywhere. Workforce, it
yeah,
is so common. There was a time in publishing industry there were hardly any women. When I would go to Frankfurt, I would be the only woman going there, from India. So and people would be staring, and you know how it is, and they would be calling me bhabhi ji, and I would take offense because this is how it is. There are very many layers and very many ways in which you find this kind of, the kind of people telling you, making you understand or making you feel that you are different. You are a woman and you are this or you are that and you are different. what I feel is that there is no difference.
Yes.
In terms of opportunities, they, they should be the same for both. And yes, we are different. Men, of course, are different than women. I mean, what's new about that? But yes, opportunities have to be the same. They should, when it comes to opportunities, should be the same. Rights should be the same. Everything should be the same.
I
That's what
think the
this is
day
my understanding in essence.
I think the day when men start applauding women more, things will change. You know,
No,
they have
no,
to
actually, I will have to
applaud.
disagree over there about because I mean, with all due respect, Rachel, I honestly think that if a man's biggest failing is his ego, his pride, I think a woman's greatest failing, greatest weakness is this need for external validation. Why are we seeking the approval of either men or women? What is this conduct certificate ever going to do for us? I read this in Arundhati Subramaniam's Women Who Wear Only Themselves. And I really did think about it because we women are, we are conditioned to look for this applause, this
Yes,
clap for a job well done. It usually means that you've compromised on personal well-being. You've played the sacrifice card instead of the satisfaction card, and I feel that kind of leads to an accumulation of resentment or bitterness or
yes,
rage,
yes.
which is entirely counterproductive in the long run. So personally, I feel that it's overrated. Why should we settle for scraps from the table? Why should we broker a cheap peace and sacrifice lasting harmony? So, that's one thing. I don't know. I really don't think we need men to pat us on the back or anything. But that said, I will also say that a little appreciation, whether it's from men or women, just the people in our lives, it goes a
Yeah.
long way. In that
Yeah.
sense, I completely agree with you.
I don't mean it. I didn't mean exactly meant. I meant everyone should appreciate that other person. And I meant that, like, whether it's in the job force or wherever she could be, like Smita was the youngest person there among those, that big force. But if everyone stood with her, maybe that company would have risen so much higher just in the initial days when she joined. You know,
I'll tell you one thing. No, I'll tell you one thing. I
but
didn't care at all as to who said whatever about
yeah,
me.
that's what
So it
I'm just saying,
depends on the
because you,
person.
yeah,
Because I
because
don't
you,
feel
if
that I
you
need
have,
to be validated. I don't need validation. Even
I'm
today, I
not,
don't
I
seek validation.
maybe I'm
Yeah.
saying it
So
wrong. I'm saying it wrong, but my way of expressing is not that. We don't need validation. I don't mean
we don't.
that. But what I mean is that, sometimes we are humans also. We need that strength. It's not that we should be condemned and put down every time. I'm not saying that. At the same time, we're not looking for validation. We are not looking for awards or any of those things. We're doing things, like my whole life. I did everything just to make me happy, just to keep me away from my
That's
own
it.
sadness or my own problem. That was my fighting thing, to fight the society by putting a screen in front of others, that I'm happy in this. But my sorrow, my problem is my own problem. I don't need anyone's shoulder to go and cry on, or to weep, or them to give me strength. I don't didn't need it.
Right.
What I meant to say is that, but everyone is not me. Everyone's not you, Smita. There are a lot of girls, or you, Anuja. There are a lot of girls who are very, very weak, and because from the time they're born, they are little girls, 9, 10 years old. They said, "You're a girl. You're a girl. This is your job. You're a girl. This is your job." I still remember, I was born and brought up in Calcutta. I've never heard abusive words. When I came to UP, suddenly I hear the MCs and the BCs. And I was so shocked to hear MCs and BCs. I heard it in a train, and I came and told my sister, "What does MC mean? What does BC mean?" She said, "Didi, don't open your mouth with that." It was like taboo that even I said it from my mouth. Okay. I said, "Unless you don't explain it to me, and I'm already in my 30s, I'm not young." But I never heard it before in my house or anywhere. And in Bengal, they don't. They'll call. their daughter-in-law says, Ma, Ma, amake cha debe, Ma, amake khabar debe. Bo Ma. Okay, it is always a Ma there. You know, Thakuma. Every word has a Ma with it, and they
Yeah.
give so much of
Mm-hmm.
respect to women. So what I felt was, I'm not saying that because we are fighters. Today, if we're sitting here because we are fighters. Today,
Yes.
here, if we are here, we are special people. All of us are special. And we've written special books. All of us have written something very special and very different. But I'm talking about the 60% or the 50% down below who doesn't have that strength. So that is what I was trying to say. If we can't pull them up, our country doesn't come up.
Yeah.
That is what I was getting at. Maybe my way of saying was
Word of it.
different.
No, but how do we do it? I think this is a very, very important point, Rachel. It's a very, very valid point. I mean,
Yeah,
we can
the
write as
only
much.
way I feel
We can.
saying more and more strong stories to them of people who are living in today's generation, in
They should go
now.
in all the vernaculars. They should go in all the vernaculars for
Yeah,
them
it
to
should
reach the
go.
right
It should
people.
be in every textbooks, everything. It's not of something what Rani of Jhansi did. You know, we have Ranis of Jhansi now also. Okay,
Right.
that remember the three girls that one escaped. She stood and fought. That rape case that took place. I'm talking about that. The two were hung, one escaped, and they were caught.
Yes.
So she was
Yes.
the Rani of Jhansi. Her the Rani of Jhansi for today's children. So that's what I'm trying to say, that we have to, as authors and writers, and just sitting and talking across a table doesn't help. We have to push this
Yes. It
out in
doesn't.
the open. We have to make it make it in a 10 rupee book. We don't even have to make it expensive that everyone can buy it. Just give it in a small pamphlet in crux. And put their picture there, who they were as a little girl and who they are and who they're today. That's all you need to do. And they will get, and when they start reading a lot of these small little books, somewhere it will start affecting their thinking and their strength and everything. So
Yes.
that's what I
It's
felt.
the it's a communal thing, and it's not just the girl who has to think like this. It's the entire
Yeah, the
community,
parents and
the
everyone.
family, society, everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
It boils down to that.
I think they should
It's
go back to the days when we had, what is it, in the gram, when
yes,
they used to have those, the street plays and things like that. We should
Correct,
have
correct.
more of that.
Right,
very
actually. It's also
good.
also
Yeah,
a form of storytelling to build up
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is.
awareness.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree with you. I think we need to wind up now. Yeah. So thank you so much, everybody.
Real
Thanks for
nice
all your views.
discussion.
Yes,
It
Rachel,
was
what
a
did you?
real nice discussion. I'm so
Yes, yes.
happy.
It was really nice and cozy to discuss with all of you. Yeah. And of course, our conversation is not going to end. So, but I think we've run out of time now. So, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing these views. And like what you said, the future is feminist, the future is inclusive, and let's write it one story at a time. So, thank you so much
Amen.
for joining in. See you.
Well said, Archana. Thank you
Thank
so much for having
Thank
this
you.
conversation, and loved having this wonderful, cozy conversation with all of you. Thank you, Ananke and Sabin and Nupur, who's behind the scenes and coordinating this whole thing. Thank you to
you.
all my co panelists. It was really nice to talk to all of you and hear your thoughts about this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Archana,
Ditto.
you
Thank
love
you.
this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
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 you.
you.
you, Nupur, for being behind the scene. Thank you for Sabin.
Yeah.
And thank you for Archana to lead us and to host us.
Thank
And
you.
Smita and Harshali, who I know well and who keeps producing books. And I love to see them and tell them great job. Thank you, Anuja. I met you for the first time. So it was wonderful to hear your stories.